All right, so we're inside now for our stair project. And what I'm doing now is combining boards so that we are increasing our tread from roughly this 11-inch so that we end up with a 13-inch tread length. So what we're going to be doing is showing how we combine the boards. So these are the boards that we had cut in a prior video. And this here is the first of the treads that I have already completed. So one thing you'll notice with this project is we will be using lots of clamps to try to hold everything into place. So let me show you what I did now that we're removing these clamps. So now we have this extended board that's very well flush, very well held together, and we do have a few pieces here, and we'll finish this off and get it nice and flush with sanding at a later time. So first thing, we always lay down paper when we're doing this, because when we clamp it together, we're going to end up with drips of glue that come off between the boards. All right. So what we're using is this Tight Bond Ultimate Sealing Ultimate Wood Glue. And wood glue is excellent for this type of project. One, because it's very forgiving early on, but with that, it also has a long set time. So each of these boards needs to be clamped and held together, ideally for 24 hours. The bottle says a minimum of 30 minutes, but that 30 minutes also still requires a 24-hour set time. So my preference is to plan ahead so that I can have these clamped for a full 24 hours. But overall, it's pretty simple to do. So I usually will use little pieces of paper towels around the clamps because we're going to clamp in a couple of different ways. So our larger clamps, they're going to actually hold the board down together and apply pressure end to end on the board. Where our spring clamps, I'm going to position between the boards, so we'll have one board on top and it's going to cover half of this board and half of the other board. We'll do that at both ends and one in the middle, and what that'll do is help to make sure that the board stays very closely aligned. You'll still have maybe a little bit of a crevice between your boards, just that margin of error, but that margin of error gets taken care of then when we do our finishing sanding across it. So pretty straightforward in terms of taking care of this step. So with the wood glue, you always want to give it a little bit of a shake and a little bit of pounding on a surface. It just breaks up the molecules within the glue so it spreads evenly and gives you what you need. All right. So with this, we're going to do a fairly thin bead of glue to go across all of the surface. So this will be completely end to end to make sure that we get a complete seal and all surface area between our boards is connected with the glue. Now, normally this will be enough for a majority of your projects. Gluing in this fashion to combine the boards, you'll get a very strong hold. But since what we're doing is extending a stair tread, after we do the glue step, I am going to reinforce it with a couple of screws that'll be invisible because they'll be on the back side of the stair. And then also our stair boxes are actually going to support the stair the entire length so that it can actually be structural when we get to finished. So we've got a bead all the way end to end, And this part does get a little bit messy. But here, what we're doing is we're working to try to make sure that our edges are nice and aligned here, nice and aligned there, and have your paper towels ready, because at this step is when you start getting some glue drips. You want to make sure that you do wipe those down. Not that a glue drip is the worst thing when it comes to this type of project, because any excess glue, once it's dry, will also get sanded down along with everything else. Alright, so then just to help keep my clamps clean, and also because we'll be able to sand off any paper that sticks, I tend to like to put a little bit of paper towel down along the clamp positioning, just to make it easier to not have to clean the clamps later. So saves a little bit of cleanup on the clamps, but also, like I said, since we're going to have to sand anyway, there's no concern with a little bit of the paper towel sticking to the board as we're doing this. So then just do a double check, make sure you're aligned. If your clamp's not between the two boards, it's not really helping hold it into place. All right. So there we've got our two end to end. Now we'll find my other clamp here. And then I'm going to do the one right down the middle. So again, this is making sure that the flat face of the board is staying flush as we go to clamp. Do a double check to make sure end-to-end sides are pressed in there. If you have a long enough clamp, I would even do a clamp edge to edge just to keep these aligned, but my clamps don't quite reach that length. Right? So I'm actually going to twist this to the side, because standing this up end to end helps me to apply these other clamps. So these clamps, which are larger, also come with a tensioner. So keeping these even, approximately, I'll be doing about 1/3 of the way along the board. We do a couple of gentle squeezes. We want to have some good pressure, but we don't want to crush the boards. So we get a good amount of tension here. You'll start seeing a little bit of glue squeezing out of the ends, which is not a problem. We'll give those a little wipe once we're done setting our clamps. All right, so then we got our second one here, and we do a couple of clamps there. So as you can see, the clamps are pretty sturdy on here, so we got good tension, but again, not a crushing amount. And then we'll finish this off by wiping down the seam where a little bit of that excess glue has come out of the edges. All right, so we've now set our board. We'll now give this at least 24 hours to set, and then we'll just rest that over our paper surface along those elevated, on the elevated boards here. I didn't mention before, I've got a couple of our railings for our spindles that I've used to prop it up just a little bit so that the air gets to both sides of the boards. Also, it gives us space so that our clamps can stay in good position as it's holding these boards together. All right. So that's it. That gives us our extension on the boards. So we'll pick this up once all these are dried and we're getting things more put together. Thanks everyone.